Welcome to the workshop. Hi, today we're going to make a stub mortise and tenon joint. We create a mortise in this piece through to about so far, and a tenon on this end that will fit in that mortise and complete the joint. I've set my mortising gauge to the size of the mortising chisel I'm going to use, which is approximately 1/3 of the width of the material. I'm going to decide on the depth I'm going to mortise this in, and I'm going to say something about there, between 1/2 and 2/3 of the way through. And I'll mark that across in pencil just to give me an idea. And then I'll copy that line across for my mortise depth, again just as a little reference. Now, taking a marking knife, let's mark that line around our component, and this is going to be our face side and our face edge, and on this one our face side and face edge. So we'll do all our marking out from these two reference faces. So we'll knife round the shoulder of the tenon. Always remembering, use the stock of the square on the face side or face edge. Place the knife in the previous knife line, slide the square up to the knife, clamp, and then mark your line. And now we have to put the stock on the face side and mark round in this direction. Knife into the knife line, move the blade of the square up to it, lock it in place and mark the line. Now we can run the marks for our tenon from the shoulder line that we've just marked to the end of our piece, referencing off the face side. We do the same again across the end, and down the other side to the shoulder mark. So there, that's marked out nice and clearly, ready to cut. Now we can mark for our mortise. That wants to be in our face edge, referencing off the face side. We need to decide whereabouts we're going to locate it. So I'll say there. We just make a light pencil line either side. Then we can run our mortise gauge between those lines to mark out for our mortise. And we're staying roughly 1/8 of an inch away from the lines to create a little shoulder all the way round our tenon. And then if we knife the end, as I say, about 1/8 of an inch in, and the other end the same. And I'm going to knife two starting points to protect the ends of my mortise, about a 1/16 or so in from the end of the mortise. and now that's ready to chop. To chop our mortise, we clamp our work to the bench top above a leg, take our mortise chisel, fill the blade into the inside line that we created of the mortise, hold it up vertically, couple of strikes. And if you're having troubles getting vertical, use an engineer's square on the bench. That will give you a nice plumb line that you can reference the face of your chisel from. Step back a bit down the mortise line, in between the mortise marks, couple of strikes, pull the chisel towards you, push backwards, and the first chip of our waste comes out. Move the chisel down again, couple of strikes, towards you, away, out comes some more waste. Keep working your way down the mortise like that. When you get to the line just inside the other end, turn your chisel round, put it in the line, vertical, couple of strikes, lift your chisel out, feed it in from the other side and lever that chip out. Now we just repeat the process until we get to the depth that we want. And what you might find useful is to mark either with a marker pen or maybe wrap a piece of engineer's tape around the chisel at the depth that you want to go to. So at that point. And what I can just do is mark a little pencil line on there. It will rub off eventually, so we just watch what's happening until we get down to that depth. You don't have to clear all the waste as you go, but remember to break the fibres by pulling the chisel towards you and then levering back. So I've left the waste in there, but it's now loose and we can clear that out in a moment. Doing it this way can speed you up a bit. Turn the chisel round at the other end. Couple of strikes, lift it out. Now we'll clear all that waste. And we're already about a third of the way down to our final depth. I'm just on my last pass now. Just driving the chisel down to my depth mark. Becomes a little more difficult to lever the chips as you get deeper in a short mortise like this. But just take your time. You can see we're levering on the last 1/16 of an inch of what's going to be the mortise, so that we don't create too much breakage with the levering action. I'll just check the depth all the way along there. It's a little bit high in the middle. I think it's just a bit of waste, so we'll just scrape the bottom there. Okay, that's good. So we're down to the depth we want. We just need to finish up to the ends of the mortise. So we'll now go a little bit closer to our knifed line, not all the way. Just take a thin cut down just to relieve a bit of material. Then feed the chisel edge into the knife line. Set it vertical. And slowly drive it down to depth. Very carefully there, no pressure on the levering, so we don't want to break this nice end that we just created. Same at the other end. In position, upright. You'll notice the change in sound as we get to the same depth as the rest of the mortise. Place the blade in the knife line at the end of the mortise. Keep it upright. Straight down. And then just lever out the last of the waste. And if you support the back of the chisel with your finger, you can lever on your finger rather than the edge of the mortise, leaving it nice and crisp. Scrape along the bottom, make sure everything's loose there. And you can tap out the waste. And we have a mortise ready for our tenon. To cut the tenon, we've marked our lines round, so we just clamp that in the vise. This is just a small mortise, so I'm going to use the dovetail saw, and I'll start on these two lines here, using my thumb to support the edge of the blade. Now track with the blade down the line on this side and across the line here, and if you keep the cut on both of those lines, it should be straight right the way through the rest of the cut. Good, and then we can do the other one. We'll use a chisel just to take out a little V section up to our knife line. That gives us somewhere to start our sawing. And just cut down to take the cheek out. One cheek off. Two cheeks off. Now we need to measure for the length of our tenon. So we'll set it in place between our lines. Just mark on the end grain the length of the tenon. And we need to do the fit of our tenon. So we'll try and put that in there. It'll go, but it's exceedingly tight. So we need to remove a little bit of material from the sides. Now, different ways of doing that. You can use a shoulder plane, you can use a chisel, you can use a router plane. A chisel, obviously, it's a bit more difficult. You've got nothing to register on, but you can gradually remove material, keep it nice and flat. A little trick you can do, if you put it in the vise, if you've got a good vise that the jaws are lined up, you can put it in there just fractionally above the jaw on the vise. Use the jaw as a reference for your chisel and work your way across like so. That actually works very well. I want to take the same amount off each side so we keep the tenon in the middle. I like to use the router plane where I can. That's a very useful tool for this sort of thing. Again, we'll have it in the vise, but we'll have it up a little bit higher this time. And keeping the one side of the router plane flat on our face side, we can rotate the other side and gradually take away small amounts of material until we've got a good fit. And pretty soon we've got a lovely snug fit. Now we can transfer down the length of our tenon, the lines we marked before, and we can cut those off. Being careful not to cut into the shoulders of your tenon. And we can cut those off. And that goes together lovely. We need to clean up now around the shoulders of our tenon, and on a small one like this the best device to use is a chisel. Laying it on our knife line right at the edge, holding it level, and then just paring away the end grain up to the tenon. And obviously we hold it in the vise to do that. If we were making a larger one, we'd probably turn to a shoulder plane such as this. We can rest the side of the shoulder plane on the tenon and gradually shave down to our knife line, always remembering to go part the way through from one side, flip it round and complete the cut from the other side to avoid any tear out. Rest the chisel blade on the knife line, lots of pressure down, hold the chisel nice and level and just ease forward through the end grain up to your tenon. And work your way right around all the shoulders, cleaning up like that. When you've finished, all your shoulders should be perfectly in plane. Now you can check that you've done your shoulders nice and square using the stock of an engineer's square. Place it on the cheek and you should get a nice tight joint line with the stock. So hopefully when I put these two together, they should go up together tight. We may have the tenon slightly too long, but no, that's matching up nicely. That's very good. So that's your Stub mortise and tenon. Give it a go.